Hello, everyone. Today I have Heba Dwikat with me, and we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff, including AI and healthcare, and then the amalgamation of both. And we'll talk about her journey that she has went through, coming from Palestine to US, and all the struggles and all the challenges, and starting her own startup, which is Noor. So we're going to talk about a lot of interesting stuff. So without further ado, let's get started.
Thank you for
Thank,
having me.
yeah, thanks for joining the show, Hiba. I'm going to get started with maybe a brief introduction about yourself, like anything about your background and maybe your childhood and what made you decide to come to US.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came here in the US in 2018. I was still in my undergrad, finished undergrad and came to the US. I got married and moved in with my husband back then. I was studying industrial and system engineering. And when I came here into the US, I already started having interest into product design and development and got the chance to study in the University of Washington to continue in product design, specifically around UX. And kind of like this is a little bit of kind of like my background from a career perspective.
Yeah, and so was there a specific reason what made you decide to come to US specifically, or you always wanted to come here?
No, I think it actually like started from my ex-husband wanting to come here to the US. So, it's funny. Sometimes we don't get to choose our destination because I always was like, she's like, I'm going to move to Europe, like the US. But then, as I lived here, I realized that actually when it comes to entrepreneurship and starting businesses, the Lord had like better plans for me, and the US was a better option. So
Yeah.
it wasn't my first choice, but it definitely was the better plan for me.
Yeah, people say, right, things happen, whatever happens for a reason. Right?
Yeah,
So that was the reason. And sometimes it's hard to connect the dots
absolutely.
when you are going through the situation, but after when you come out of that, that's when you realize like, oh man, I've grown so much, or this is what I was destined to do.
Absolutely.
So let's touch base on, you said product design. Was product design also something you discovered after coming to US, or was that something you always were passionate about?
Oh, that's actually a very fun story. So I started with industrial and system engineering 3 years in. I hated it so much. I was sleeping in classes. I was not motivated. And I was about to switch to computer engineering. And so, I always I always was in art for like an artist on my own, 20 years of my life, and always loved computers, but there was no such thing as like something that mixed them both. So on my fourth year in industrial and system engineering, I got the chance to take a class called product design and development. And I got to design like this small wallet. And I remember being just so fascinated by it. The idea of literally not having anything. And then suddenly by the end of the course, we had something and we tried to sell it out. So like an idiot, I went to all my classmates for the capstone project. And I was like, do you want to build a product with me?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. Like, stay away. What are you doing? This is not industrial engineering like topic. So I went to another professor in another faculty and I was like, hey, I'm thinking of building a product. Can we like have a collab? And, I was the first student in the faculty who gets to do a collab with another like engineering a faculty to do this. And my capstone ended up being, we ended up patenting it.
Wow.
It was a solar home system for underserved areas in Palestine. So I got the chance to go and talk to people where they don't have access to electricity and they had real problems. And then we took it for a startup competition called the Holt Prize, which is very famous here in the US between universities. And we won over Palestine.
No way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a pretty interesting, way to get into building something at the same time winning over it. So, what exactly were you trying to build?
Yeah, it was this physical. So now I am more into digital, but it was this physical like shape product that I actually designed from scratch. So the idea is that in Palestine, there's a couple of areas like we call area A, B, and C, and people who live in area C are not allowed to build They're not like they don't have access to electricity. So they had a couple of problems. Like in the summer, for example, they would have mosquito bites a lot because like they don't have per se like shelter. They're more like tents. Another problem was diabetes. Like they'd had to save diabetes medicine in a closer town, and so it was this weird thing where it was kind of like solar panels that gets the sun. We have a lot of sun, and then it can feed into kind of like that compartment for a small fridge to put the medicine for the mosquito bites, some lights at night, and it was portable. It was like a little cart thing. So that was kind of like the first product. I cringe a little bit when I look at it, but it was kind of how I got into product design.
This is awesome. And so that was your first product though, and that got fame almost like.
Yeah, it did.
So of course I'm assuming that was a lot of like boost of
Lots of it.
self-esteem and just like you can do this.
Yeah.
And so from there, what was the next adventure?
Yeah, so when I came here to the US, I was on an F2 visa, and like for people who don't know, like you can't even like volunteer. It's a very limited, it's the spouse of a student visa. And so that gap year, although I was like really scared of not doing anything, I needed it because, you know, life was very busy. And so based on that, I started like kind of looking for potential universities to find product design and development. I applied to a lot, and I got accepted into UW. Thank the Lord, because they're the only people who accepted me. And my ex-husband happened to move to Seattle, and my university acceptance was in Seattle, so it was great that it worked that way.
Yeah.
So it was the program was human-centered design and engineering, and that was kind of like the next step is get my foot into the door in the US and try to potentially get a job in that field.
Yeah. And so tell me about like, because it's referred as SCDE, right? Human-centered.
HCDE, yeah.
HCD, so human-centered design and engineering.
That's correct.
So what exactly were you learning over there that kind of like later helped you to where you are?
Okay, first of all, I want to say like a very interesting story, which when I got into HCDE, I really thought it was physical product design. You can ask my friends, they're like, what? So I kind of got into a program not knowing that it was completely digital.
Yeah.
But some of the programs that they had was, we learned about the basics of what is like UX and what is digital experiences, and kind of that process. I think they really worked so well on the process of how do you design a digital product. So learning about the users, what they call user research or UXR, how to talk to users, the interviews, but then how do you take all of these learnings and kind of find that problem statement that you want to solve for,
Right.
and then kind of like finding iteration solution. I think the most fun thing about HCDE and the one that they taught us the most is that iteration process, where you creating a lot of ideas, then you put them in a funnel of understandings, like putting them in front of users and see which one makes sense, and then reducing it more down and reducing it more down. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, the core of what HCD taught us.
So I'm always curious about how like you get feedback from the user, and I've also learned that HCDE is more psychological than anything. So is it more like a qualitative study of people, or is it just something you're quantifying to?
There's both. So it depends. Like I think what HCDE differs from other masters is that it was all project based, and so they tend to be more on the qualitative and psychological point of view. However, like when it comes, for example, to user research, they introduce you to many methods, one of them being quantitatives and surveys and doing data analysis, which from my previous background as an industrial engineer, I had. So you can do both, but they tend to be leaning a little bit more to the qualitative side of things.
Yeah, because it's more about experience, right? And experiences cannot always be quantified, I guess.
Just kinda.
Yeah.
So I have such strong opinions about this. So I think, you need both you need quantitative and qualitative, because quantitative, and I'm doing that right now with Nour, it gives you the overarching themes, and you need sometimes enough data for statistical significance. Qualitative make you dig deeper into something, so you can understand that journey. For example, for someone on how they learn a hobby, you can't understand it from a survey. You can be asking people like, fill in the blanks, but no one is going to fill that. They're just going to answer really quick questions. So you need both. And when you come to building the product, it has to actually be systematic. So you have to have a systematic approach what is the criteria that we're benchmarking these ideas on? And that has to, if you're working in a company, that has to come from multiple things like the business metrics or specific UX metrics that we're looking for. So it's actually very systematic, but there's a human element to it, in which quantitative research does not usually convey.
Yeah, I see. And that's good. Like hybrid system is good because that way you have some wiggle room to be creative.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to rely on data. So it's like a win-win almost.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So you did that HCD master's, was a master's, right? And then did you start like doing an intern or like a job?
Yeah, so as a student on F1, like you'll see in the university, you'd be like freaking out about not getting an internship.
I've been there.
You've been there. And I got the chance to work on, I worked with a company as an intern called Genome Medical. It was a healthcare tech where they provide genetic counseling to patients. So I worked there for about 6 months, taught me a lot. Like nothing can teach you better. University can teach a lot, but nothing can teach you better than actually doing the work.
Yeah.
And then I got the chance through capstone projects and projects within HCDE to work with a couple of companies like IHME and a VR company. But then when I finished the program, I got multiple offers, and then I ended up choosing to go with Philips Oral Healthcare.
Yeah. So before we move into Philips Oral Healthcare, I want to ask, you said it taught you a lot. What was that 6 month of internship? What was the one thing that stuck to you still now as like, okay, well, this is something that, I cannot, I would not have got it in school, or just something that like, personally you were like, oh man, I'll take this as a good lesson for me.
That's a good question. Damn, there's a lot that I learned. That I think the one thing that stuck to my mind, I had a very healthy team. So maybe that like raised my bar. And so I got to see a lot of good process. They were a startup, but I got to see a lot of good processes from the very beginning. For example, even as an intern, I got to be part of kind of like that roadmap setting, at least be in that meeting and seeing how they set a feature roadmap, and they start planning 6 months in advance. And so being part of that process early on and seeing how we say like 2 months from now, a feature is going to get released. And so as a designer, you have to think a little bit ahead of time of when you have to design and iterate and give it to the engineers. So that process, I would say in Philips, it was a little bit more loose than that. But Genome was like super process oriented. And so we would push features really like a very well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
And the second thing was actually just, I got the chance to have my first mentor there, and he taught me a lot and was super patient with me. So I would say he almost like fixed a lot of the fundamentals that in school you get to learn a lot, but he managed to add that element of real life context to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I had that question for later on, but we can discuss now. So, you did say that, and we can talk about the ADP list later on, but you did say that there was a mentor that kind of helped you. Are we talking about the same mentor? And like, what was something different about like learning from him that you didn't get it before by anybody else?
I would say first, I don't think I got a mentor before that. I think I came, growing up as a woman in Palestine culture has a lot to celebrate about. What a generous community. And there's just, the list is so long. But at the same time, I think being super ambitious there was scaring a lot of people. And it felt like whatever a man could do, I have to do like 20 times better to even be recognized at all. And so I think that's what I wrote in ADP list as well, is like I wanted always a role model, whether a woman or not, like to look up to. And so when my mentor came in Genome, and he really helped me, and he was super patient, and there was no ulterior motive. He truly, genuinely was invested in me. It just felt like the whole world to me, because I don't think I got a mentor in my career before. Yeah. If anything, I feel like I was fought against my career.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like more people want to make sure that you fail almost rather than succeed. I mean, and it's also, like you said, it requires a lot of patience to mentor. And so not a lot of people have that, nowadays, especially,
Yeah,
people mind their own business at the same time, forget about the patients.
I totally agree.
I want to talk about the women in Palestine, you said. And was it like, what was the struggling part? I know that you said that like it was hard to find a common ground, or like to reach to a level where men were treated like, okay, well, they can do things, but like what was stopping like women?
I wouldn't say, I can't speak about everyone's experience. I can, just in the university, it just, community, like there's a lot of hardships back home and jobs are very limited. And so, because like I understand it from the context of men are providers, of course, like the idea is that you give the jobs first to them because they need to provide for families. So sometimes you get to feel, or you get to hear that, women can be like the blocking of opportunities, which is not true. It's more like there's a lot of, I don't like simplifying big problems. There's a lot of systematic things to it. So, and being super ambitious and having big dreams of building a big, it can scare people even here, let alone in a more conservative community.
Totally.
That's how I would see it. But I wouldn't call it like all women are experiencing that. This was just more
for you,
my own personal experience. Is that it was a bit harder. It almost I needed to work like 10 times or 20 times harder just to prove myself that I am as capable.
Yeah, I know, I agree with you actually. And it's interesting how almost like psychologically humans treat like ambition as like more like a dominant type of trait. So since it's a dominant trait, people associate it with males, but like you said, it's not necessarily true. And it's just a human tendency to be ambitious. And if you're not ambitious, that's scary, because like what are you like living for? And it's good that you talked about more like a perception thing, right? That's what the perception was. And not trying to promote the show, but it's the altered perception show. So, it altered your perception in a way that, I'm glad that you still kept going on your ambition and your dreams, because not a lot of people can sustain, the pushback. It's harder, you tend to like self-doubt yourself. Were you faced during your like childhood or till you started a startup that, like that self-doubt, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I would say I still have self-doubt. Like, everyone, all of us have self-doubt. I have even sometimes more self-doubt in seasons more than the others. I think what helps is I tend to be a bit stubborn, about when I see a vision, I really live it through. And I think my mission in this life is to bring people's potentials. That's why I do mentorship. First of all, to give back to what my mentor gave me and to give back to the community. And so it really helps when you know where you're heading and what you're aiming to. But there were many, many times where I wanted to give up. Till this day, sometimes some days comes harder than others. So self-doubt is inevitable. I think I'm trying to be kinder to myself. I'm not doing a good job yet, but that's how I'm like trying to manage it, is to be kinder to yourself and to have some sort of a mission that you're trying to achieve in your life.
I like few things about what you said. One thing I did like is that you tend to be a little bit more stubborn, and usually people think of stubbornness as a negative quality, but I personally think that it's a strength, because to achieve something, to reach to an end goal, you have to be stubborn. If you're not stubborn, like you won't the path will not be created to you by itself.
I totally
you have to create it. You have to be stubborn towards it. I mean, look at Steve Jobs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a double-edged sword in your personal life. It can be a bit like annoying to individuals around you. I think a lot of since I'm very surrounded by startup right now, I would say what people don't realize is sometimes it just literally the advice is just don't die. Try not to die as you're on that journey. And for you not to die, there's 100 reasons why you probably will die. It's like product market fit. And so if the foundations of your confidence that you can make this go through and your confidence in yourself is not there, you're dead. Like we haven't even got to the hard stuff, you're dead.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, how I look at it is like, if you don't even have that foundation of conviction within yourself, you're going to die very early on.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. I want to cover, I know that you also touched on the ADP list. I do want to cover that. Maybe even what is ADP list to people who don't know about that, and what have you achieved on it?
Absolutely. I think I'm a huge fan of ADP List and their founder. I started using ADP List about 3 years ago when they were like still early on. But ADP List is like a mentorship platform. It's a marketplace that connects experts in tech. So you can design. It started with design, but now it has designers, engineers, product managers, founders, with people like me and you, or even people early in their career who's looking for mentorship on whatever topic within design, engineering / tech. So, I first started using it as a mentee, and then I decided to apply as a mentor. And I think I have 3,000 minutes there, but like I got the chance.
You were right. I actually have statistics over here.
Oh my God.
So it says you have mentored 2,957 minutes.
Okay.
100 sessions completed. Average attendance 99.01%, and karma points is like 249. I mean, that deserves a good clap. And not only that, just so the audience is aware, you have been rated as the top 50 female mentors in generalist product management.
Oh, wow.
So that's an achievement.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
What a way to give back to the community.
I think so. It gives me a lot of energy to see young individuals teach you. Teaching teaches you a lot and gets you back to the fundamentals. So I get as much knowledge as they get knowledge from coming to the sessions.
I 100% agree with you. Let's switch gears and let's talk about Philips Oral Healthcare. When did you start working there, and what did you learn working there?
Yeah, I started in around August 2021. Philips Oral Healthcare is great. Like, it gave me what is a big corporation, and I still am a huge fan of their mission. I believe their mission is to impact a certain number of millions of people's lives in health by 2030. And, they were not a healthcare company to begin with. They completely switched their gears to become a healthcare. And so they have oral healthcare. As Philips, they have ultrasound. They have a lot of the machines that you use, like when someone's having a heart attack. Like they have a lot of healthcare products that people are not aware of. So this was a huge thing why I decided to join them. I think one of the things that I learned within Philips, first of all, I got to go back into more digital / product. So I got to work on the Sonicare toothbrush, if you ever used it.
Sonic. I think I've heard of that.
The electrical,
yeah.
Yeah, it's very famous, like if not the most famous toothbrush in the world. I was responsible for the digital experience, but you cannot design the digital experience, the app experience, without understanding the physical product and putting it in that user journey as you build it.
Yeah.
What I think, there's a lot of things I learned within Philips. I would say my manager taught me a lot about systematic strategic approach, as in, how do you, like, I talked a little bit about it, how HDE taught us, but I think Philips Oral Healthcare design team is super systematic, engineering systematic, and it really shows. So sometimes people associate UX designers as like, oh, they're like very emotional and like, and of course you need to have that creative side and that psychology side. Oh, of course, you need to understand behavioral design. But when you add a system to everything that you do and your decisions are very clearly articulated, you become the most powerful person in the room. And that's what he did.
And why is that? And what is this systematic approach?
Yeah, so for example, when you start working in big teams where there's a product manager and engineers, and you would think that like people would throw ideas like really knowing what they're talking about, but no, just sometimes it's like whatever you're feeling is like, hey, how about we do this? How about we do that? So the issue is not, and I'm facing that right now with Noor, the issue is not minimal access to ideas. the biggest problem when designing something is knowing the right problem. In fact, throughout the whole design process, I would say it's 60 to 70% of the time goes to figuring the exact right problem, and 30% going on executing it, finding an idea that works really well and executing it. That's like the easier part. And so if you do not have a systematic approach of understanding what is the true problem and testing out hypotheses and assumptions, like a true scientist, you'll be just throwing dots in the wall and hoping it will stick. That's how it is.
Interesting. And so, I see. So it kind of like ties back to the processes that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So it has to be, you have to have a clear definition of how to get to the root of the problem.
Yes.
Interesting. And anything that specifically you want to share about, like you have learned about applying a systematic approach to finding out a problem?
I think it has multiple facets to it. First of all, I think that any founder or any designer need to have an intuition. I am not like disregarding intuition. They teach you in HCD how to do UXR at the beginning so I would say having a consistent funnel of talking to users, even if you don't have a product that you want to test out with them, just talking to them, understanding their needs. The more that you can gain knowledge about, like if I ask you a little bit, if I start asking you questions about your hobbies and I start digging deeper, I'll probably start figuring out that journey of yours. So it's very, very important to almost what we call a user journey, to map out that user journey. If you cannot map it out very clearly, at least try to ask questions around the assumptions that you have. So set some assumptions, set some hypotheses. If you don't have data at all, often in big companies, there's data. So go dig and find these data, statistical data, qualitative data. If you don't, set some assumptions and hypotheses, and then build a plan on how you're going to get them. Sometimes you get them by talking to users. Oftentimes, I believe that you need to, especially when you want to build a business, you need to get them by people giving their money. A lot of people can tell you, yeah, I would like that. But the moment that they need to pay, they won't pay. So the goal is like to really put these assumptions out there and see which one is sticking and which one is not.
I see. Yeah. A couple of things, I really like what you said. And one thing is user feedback, basically having user in the loop all the time. I've also learned that to understand what a good user experience will be, you have to become a user.
Yeah.
And since you were dealing with a physical product and then making almost like a digital imprint of it, how much was that into play?
So that's a good question. So we have, as designers, we always say, when you get too involved and you start designing the product, this is when you stop becoming a user. So when I started joining Philips and I was given a toothbrush in the app, my recommendation is to write everything that you're noticing, because then you're a user.
Yeah.
And then you still have that fresh perspective of a user. The moment you start designing a feature and you're giving what we call a PRD and you're starting digging deeper, you get so deep into the work, you forget sometimes the user perspective. So what we do in design is we have something called design crypt, where you go and put your design in front of other people, designers and product managers and people who are not as close to your work, because they're going to give that different perspective.
Interesting.
But sadly, you're a user for a bit, and then I wouldn't call yourself, like I wouldn't call you like the true user. So that's why you need to always talk to actual users.
Interesting. So it's almost like a hybrid approach. So you become the user, at the same time you always want to have a third person's perspective, because you are engraved in it so much that you'll be biased.
Absolutely.
I see.
That's why, like, for example, in your podcast, you might need people who come here, people who does not do the podcast, and like the users that you're interviewing, that they're the one who might have better feedback, or the people who watch, they're the actual users.
Yeah.
Their weight of feedback is 3 times more than your weight of feedback.
Yeah. Talk about the feedback. That's just a good segue. If you guys have any comments that you want to leave on the show, feel free to, if you want me to invite any other guests, I'm happy to do so. Leave a comment in the comment section, and then we'll make it happen. Cool. I like that you are naturally helping me promote my show. Thank you. This is not scripted, guys. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Like, let's go from Philip oral healthcare to I do want to touch a little bit more on the ADP list, but
Sure.
but I also want to touch base on Noor. So, what was the transition? How long did you work for Philip oral healthcare for your next adventure? And yeah, if you can tell us about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I stopped working at Philips in August 2024. What a great adventure. 3 years with them. Shout out to the team. And I started working on Nour full time starting then. I started dabbling into Nour, I think, starting May as a part time in my own free time. Started like really getting the UXR and kind of like a couple of small pilots, but it didn't really kick through till I quit, took one day off and started.
So let's actually, I have a couple of questions here. So what was this idea that you had about Noor, and what were you working on? Like, what exactly motivated you to pursue it?
Yeah, maybe we can start from kind of like that backstory.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first I can say what Nour is about. So Nour potentially would be a marketplace that connects learners interested in hands-on skills like baking, cooking, paint, anything, like with local experts that are interested to teaching them. And so actually the problem that I set out to solve started from my own problem when you're a user at the beginning. So I'm a hobbyist by nature. Sadly, I'm a master of none, but I know a lot of things about a lot of hobbies. And so I became interested in latte art at the beginning of the year, another hobby, and started looking online, started going on YouTube. There's abundance of knowledge, and started practicing. And within usually I get better, but the first 3 weeks I actually did not progress at all. Like, it's making awful blobs of milk. And so I got really frustrated and I kept looking more online. I started noticing, damn, there's a lot of knowledge, but each one of them are teaching at a different level. Even as a beginner, I actually don't know what am I supposed to learn from a structure. Like, what is that path, that journey? Kind of like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. It's not clear when you learn on your own. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and find a class or someone to teach me. And Seattle is the city of coffee. I expected I would have lots of people who might teach 101, lots of classes, but I actually only found one class. And the second class was actually a barista program. And I didn't want to become a barista. I just wanted to be good enough so I can practice and make beautiful coffee.
Yeah.
I took the class. It was a bit expensive, but I took it. And within 3 hours, that teacher was so good. Shout out to Anchorhead Coffee. That's where I got the class.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Where I got, I started making like beautiful rosettas at the end, or like the beginning of it, which is, it's insane for 3 hours of work.
Yeah.
So the idea was literally incepted there. I was like, I wonder if this is a problem for other people, where when you start learning something, or even as you become more intermediate, almost like with hands-on skills, you need that feedback loop. And because first of all, there was structure. So she had the class structured, teaching you technique by technique. And second of all, she had a feedback system. So you try and you get feedback. You try and you get feedback. And that's what I realized, learning just accelerate when you have someone who can give you feedback. That's why ADV List works so well.
Yeah.
And so that's what Nour is trying to solve for, is like help my mission is to make hands-on learning more effective, more accessible, and more fun. And hands-on learning, because it's easier to find mentorship for mental skills like UX design, because you can get the feedback online.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get the same feedback for singing or art. You can, of course.
Yeah.
You probably need a hybrid model.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And so how does it work? I know I'm assuming you are still developing it, but like what's it, how is it different from other, online platforms and hybrid models?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the niche just being focused on hands-on skills. So there are There are competitors like kind of Eventbrite or Airbnb experiences or these places where you can, put the class on. But unfortunately, like their searching algorithm is not the best because it might not show you. First of all, it's not a only learning platform.
That's true.
So that's kind of like the first point. The second point is Noor will be more focused on that learning journey. So right now I have a more bootstrap model where I'm working with teachers to provide one-off classes and with really heavy focus on even if you learn something fun with it, but we're trying to teach you the techniques behind it. So we started, for example, with a pie class, like learning the basic and the fundamentals of how to make the pie dough and kind of like all the mistakes and the techniques of doing it, but also adding that element of having different flavors and customizing it. So Noor differentiation, at least from teachers' point of view, is like we help you not only find students and promote it, but also help you with that journey of becoming from an expert to a teacher, which becoming a teacher is a different skill set than being an expert in something. For the learner point of view, in the future, if you're interested in a hobby, you'll have almost like your own personalized journey. So
Interesting.
you would have, the hope is like you would have, okay, you're starting with latte art. These are the techniques you need to learn, and we'll help you like step by step. Maybe if it's an online resource, we'll give that to you. If you need like someone to help you one-on-one or class, you'll get that support. But it's almost like your companion to help you with that journey.
Yeah. And so, you said something about search algorithms, which are not usually found in these online systems. How are you planning to utilize that, and how are you planning to make it more personalized?
Yeah, so I think like with Eventbrite and so Eventbrite, for example, has like different classes and or Airbnb experiences. Eventbrite, I understand they have more than just classes. So sometimes when you search for something, it will give you mixed results. So my hope is that actually the platform can get big enough that when you search, let's think like painting one-on-one or like specific like skill, the algorithm is strong enough and there's a lot of filtering. So you can filter by availability, by time, by location.
Oh, yeah.
And because it's just focused on learning and classes, and we get at the beginning the chance to ask you a lot of questions at the beginning in the journey, then it becomes more tailored exactly to what you're looking for. So if you're interested in music, we ask you a lot of questions, potentially build you like a learning kind of journey.
Yeah.
We'll go from there.
Yeah. So I want to ask about, so we touch base on the healthcare, and I want to talk about the AI component of it. How much of the AI you are or you're planning to use in Noor?
I think, I have a certain opinion about this. So right now we're seeing a boom in AI companies, especially in the Silicon Valley and YC. I'm interested in applying to YC in the future. And so right now, I think if you just tell investors, it's an AI company, you probably are going to get you're going to get money.
Yeah.
Even if your company literally just sprinkles AI.
Yeah, you just have an idea and then you get like millions of dollars.
Absolutely. And so I just want to be a little bit mindful of that because I've started seeing all the products that I work on, whether it was within Philips or the tools I use for Nour, all having now an AI component, absolutely useless. So before I introduce it to Nour, I really want to make sure that I nail that experience and that like journey for both the teacher and the learner really well. And if there's a part of that journey that completely needs the help of AI, we're going to do it. For example, like helping teachers write their class description. We're trying to set that process where potentially AI can help you, especially as an expert who've never done this. Maybe you might need some help from another mentor who have taught before. Sometimes it could be help in pricing your model or writing the description of your class. Might be actually prompting and using like the generative AI. So if that's the case, then I will use AI to support it, but I wouldn't just, unless I want investors' money, I wouldn't just sprinkle, just put AI for the sake of it. So far, it looks like I probably will use AI as a way to support the journey of the teacher. And in the future for the learner, it might be generating these ultra personalized learning paths.
Yeah, Yeah, I see a couple of paths in here. So, like if, for example, for a teacher, sometimes generating content might be a little bit challenging.
Absolutely.
So they can use some of the features that you have in your platform to
Absolutely.
generate content or to just take help of generative AI.
Absolutely.
Do you foresee any like agentic like workflow getting inbuilt in the platform?
No, I'm not sure yet. So agentic AI is now having all the rave, although
Yeah.
Cloud AI just was the one that like started providing their API.
Yeah.
But if you go on Open YC directory, you'll start seeing everything agentic.
Yes.
I still believe it hasn't been cracked yet, but it's almost like companies are being built just so they can get ready for OpenAI to provide their model.
Yeah.
I am very open to it. Of course, I think it's, again, going back because like Nour's still early on and the vision is still, I have a vision, but the path is still a little bit fuzzy to that product market fit. I cannot tell you with conviction. Of course, we're using agentic AI in this, but the thing is, I will use AI whatever the company needs to. However, I do see agentic AI becoming super powerful, if not already, in healthcare.
Yeah, that's an interesting segue, and I wanted to touch on that and why is that. But before, I do want to kind of commend you off because you are not like jumping on the AI train for the sake of AI train. That you are actually building a product which people want, people need, and then it's basically user experience, very user forward experience, and not just like, oh well, everybody's doing AI, so let me just sprinkle some AI in it. So kudos to you. And
thank you. I think I want to say one thing why I'm not saying this because, I was a user experience designer. I actually learned it a little bit on the hard way. So when I started working on Nour, even though I was a UX designer, I realized I was not as user-centric as I thought I would be. If you do not solve a true problem, so you have either two paths. You either innovate like how Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. Someone could argue that there was really no problem before the iPhone. Like there were people were using like smartphones in their old ways. So either you innovate something that truly was not conceivable, like AI or ChatGPT, or you decide to solve a real problem. And when I say a real problem, they call it like your head is burning on fire problem. That I need a solution right now. Put water on my head. And so if you truly don't do that, in my opinion, you'll not find product market fit. Because you might get all the rave and, oh my God, it's AI. But at the end of the day, someone is not going to put their money. Or you might get money at the beginning, but like as you scale, you realize it's not scaling. And there's a lot of companies that die even after they get big enough because there was actually no product market fit from the beginning.
Interesting, yeah.
So you have to solve a real problem, otherwise you'll die.
And that's why people say that the problem begins with you. Basically, you are the one who are facing the problem or sees the problem right in front of you. And that's when you actually think about, investing into building that idea and then actually finally doing the startup and then, building a business.
Yeah.
So it's like how it's amazing that you brought it up. And if we can touch few more minutes here, that how right now our society is looking at startup and businesses like almost like a fashion, it's like Louis Vuitton, exactly. It's like Louis Vuitton, you startup, everybody thinks like startup is like that cool thing. And everybody is just like a sheep herd, like just going towards it without realizing that is nothing. Everything starts with the problem.
Yeah.
If you don't have a problem, there is no startup, there is no solution.
Ideas are dime a dozen. Yeah. I think I'm looking at Nour, even if, God forbid, Nour fails. That's okay, right? It's my first startup. I would have learned the basics of how to provide value. And to provide value and impact, you have to solve real problems. You can apply it almost in everything, in relationships, in going back to corporate and building another startup. And so ideas are dime a dozen. Solving a real problem is the hardest part.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do with it.
Yeah. That's hardest thing is hard thing to do, So Not a lot of people do it, but I commend you for actually saying that and then solving real problems. So okay, let's touch base on what you said earlier, is that AI can be very beneficial for the healthcare industry. Why did you say that, and where do you see this AI seeping into healthcare?
That's a really good question. I think as someone who, worked in healthcare for a little bit and also is like a consistent patient, I have an autoimmune, and with chronic autoimmune conditions, like there's not like our system right now is built for profit. Surprise, surprise, especially here in the US. And so from my own experience, like truly noticing that you're being treated as a product. You come to the doctor's office, at best, you have 30 minutes, and you can tell that they're like at 20 minutes mark, they start like, okay, bye-bye, next patient. And so first we need to solve the systematic issues. But since this is not going to be solved anytime soon, it's a bigger problem. I think one of the problems that doctors keep mentioning is that logistical work that they have to do. So after you talk to a patient, you have to fill all the information, you have to send the prescription. This is fantastic for agentic AI. You can have a session with the patient, like knowing that you can keep your focus on, which is what the patient needs, and letting kind of like, I can see solutions where the agentic AI can hear everything and can put it directly. Granted, it's HIPAA compliant and all your information is secured, and it can start putting the notes without the doctor doing that. And the second part is actually diagnosis. So sadly, one of the biggest problems we have right now, the system is not, how do I say, connected. So you might go to one hospital, they use a different system than the other hospital. Every time as a patient, you have to fill that information. Maybe if they're using MyChart, I don't know if you're aware of MyChart, but
I'm not.
it's one of the biggest kind of like tools that doctors use and patients use to keep their information. And sometimes hospital keep that like same profile between them. Oftentimes it's not. So if we can find a better way of getting as much information of the user before they even have that session. And so the AIs, and we have AI models that keep fed with all of this data to start predicting, well, if someone is answering all of this, potentially they have this disease. And on top of that, when you have that session with the doctor, maybe, honestly, this is a hot take, but maybe doctors need to diagnose 50% of the times. Let me tell you why. They have 30 minutes to understand all of your history and then suddenly come with a diagnosis. Oftentimes, I notice these like very quick diagnoses are wrong.
Yeah.
Especially with chronic and autoimmune conditions. If you want to solve a quick problem, a systematic problem, sure. The moment the system, your thyroid is acting with your hormones, is acting with multiple things, I can almost guarantee you that the doctor cannot diagnose it correctly. And that's, I think, where AI can help.
Yeah. Wow, that's very impressive, and I have like so many questions now. I mean, that's so real because I actually did my own physical checkup every year. You have to do a checkup, right? So I did that, and there were few things which were on the boundary, and from the looks of it, like it all seems like okay, that's fine. But few things on the boundary, if you create like an agentic system that you put all the data about like your reports, test reports, and it has the data from the past patients in terms of an AI model basically with a knowledge base. So it can basically give you much more like a personalized
Absolutely
result. So that, and it all can also guide you towards what all you should be taking. Like you should be eating more dark chocolate, or
Absolutely.
So it's gonna be game changer over there. And the what you said about the documentation control and note making, I mean, that's gonna be huge.
And that's like the minimum. Like, obviously, what makes LLMs so strong is that the data sets in general, like it's being trained on the internet, and now we're moving into custom data sets where these AI startups are building their custom data sets and feeding it into the LLM, and now it can like generate even stronger outputs. So I suspect, especially with diagnosis, like feeding it why do we do typical research in universities? What they do is they bring a lot of patients or a lot of participants, and from that data and statistical data, they can make like, hey, we think this disease is connected to this.
Yeah.
I got the chance to work on B2B2C in Philips, and I got to see these companies that take a lot of data using wearables. And it's again, it goes back all about data. The more data that you have, the more that you can diagnose.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like all the personalization that you can do, like my body is different than your body, right? And the third person's body is different. So it's like you have 7-8 billion people. You have so many different people, like bodies with different diseases, different symptoms. So it's harder to diagnose the same disease for the same people without actually understanding what is going wrong.
Absolutely.
And personalize it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and like I think healthcare can use AI like so badly.
Huge.
Yeah. Talk about like discoveries that you were talking about. I'm also very excited about the new research that the AI will be able to help with. Like, for example, diagnosing new diseases that humans have not even discovered yet, or just like creating new ones that they think that, okay, well, there is no history of this specific disease, and even figuring out solutions for it. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think it will really probably help again with. So we humans love to create a process. That's why I think this symptoms equals this thing. Sadly, right now our system is very reactive. So if you have a symptom, we try to treat the symptom. We try not to. We don't treat the root cause. Because the root cause this is like our whole body. It's and so I'm not sure yet what it will look like, but what I suspect it will be. It will help a lot in the cancer research. It will help a lot with the chronic conditions. I'm very passionate about it.
No.
If it wasn't so hard to get into it at the beginning, I would love to do my second startup. Maybe would be around chronic conditions because it alters multiple parts of your body, and this is where I think humans are struggling a little bit to find the connection between different part of the body. So that's, I think, where we're going to see the biggest research start showing and start giving you kind of themes that otherwise we would not had from, we've done like a controlled study with 100 participants.
Yeah. Now, this is the research component. Now talk about the practicality of things. You have been in healthcare industry. How quick is the healthcare industry in adopting technologies, and specifically, AI, where it's going to be using your custom data, and then there is sensitivity issues and stuff?
It depends. I would say, Philips is great, and they're trying to adapt to the future. But Philips started in 1870 or something. Like, good job them for trying to keep up. But they're on the older side of the company, so. They're a big company, so I would say the bigger the company, like the harder that it's going to be to adopt because there's a lot of bureaucracy. That being said, I have seen healthcare, tech healthcare, so I can only speak about that. And so small startups, unicorn startups in that field, very quick to adapt. One of the companies that I was aware of when working with oral healthcare was Omada. And Omada is a B2B2C company. Essentially what they do is they work with employers and insurance companies. They provide you with a scale that is connected to cellular, and they give you a wearable, and they're all about helping you, manage your diabetes. And their data is insane. I mean, their whole user journey and their products is insane. They have a lot of data. These people will adopt really quickly to AI.
Yeah. Sure.
New companies out of the Silicon Valley or out of like in general in the US will quickly adopt it. In fact, they will make it part of their process. Kind of like how I potentially see Noor from the very beginning. If I need AI, I'll bake it in. Big companies, I think they're not going to adopt really well, and that might kill them.
Yeah, and that's interesting. They said that. So basically, it's almost like what you're saying is that use AI or die.
I think that's going to be the future. Be a UX designer who knows how to do AI or die.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying maybe around the .com, like know how to use the internet or die. Like that, I think that's where we're heading.
Yeah. And people also talk about like, AI taking jobs, but in this case, it more almost feels like it's giving you the opportunity right now to learn. And because it's, what do you say? It's like, is it still in early phases? I mean, I'm assuming so because there are not a lot of people or companies that have adopted this. So you still have time.
I would say I don't know how aware of you like of the layoffs in the tech industry. Severe layoffs, and finding a job in the tech industry right now is hard. 3 years ago, you would go and you would negotiate your offer and you would want more money, and like it was a very different dynamic. And now it's the opposite. It's now proof to me like there's just a lot of abundance of demand from us as people want to find a job. And I think there's a couple of reasons why this is happening. One of it is because the tech industry overinflated and over employed around COVID, and then now the repercussions are showing and you have to scale down.
Yeah.
The other part is because AI is already being baked in to take people's jobs. I don't like fear mongering. It's like, oh my God, it's going to take your job. Run for your life. But it will take jobs.
Yeah.
And new jobs will be created.
Yes.
And so if you are not aware, or if you can't start like associate yourself with what potentially the new jobs will be creating,
Yeah.
which I think is going to be a lot around prompting and prompt engineering, and for UX designers, how do you use AI as part of your system, reasoning models. If you don't know how to use that, then a company will, I think even starting now, I think a company, even big companies, would rather take a designer who knows AI over a designer who doesn't.
Like there's going to be like jobs, but it's going to be just displaced. There's going to be like a lot of companies who will be preferring employees who have
Yes.
AI background or have worked on something similar. So I guess right now is the time. I mean, you still have, nobody has actually figured out how prompt engineering works, even though prompt engineering has been like last 2 years now. There has been some models of like how you,
So early.
yeah. I mean, people are still question about evals, like how to evaluate a prompt that you have put in.
Absolutely.
So there is nothing figured out, and right now is the time if you wanna, actually jump into using AI in your work. And it's interesting to me like why these big companies are laying off engineers, and they are so valuable. What you should be doing is teaching them how to use AI, because these bigger companies have money to teach employees how to use AI. The reason I'm saying that is because let's say suppose you have 5 employees and or I guess 10 employees, let's say. So you have 10 employees, and then now you have with the agentic workflow, and then you just need 1 or 2 person. But instead of laying all of the 8 people, you can teach them all 10 of them how to use this, and then you can create 100 times more output. You know what I'm trying to say? Like
I hear you, but I think it's more complicated than this. For example, I'll tell you, like, if I'm very honest, in Philips, like, people think that these companies know exactly what they're talking about all the time. It's just like, it's like this new trend, AI. I'd rather someone who knows AI more than someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
Even people who work on top of you, like the managers and the exec team, doesn't mean that they know it.
Yeah.
They sometimes layoffs, and I wish the layoffs is like how you're mentioning. It often is as simple as that. Okay, we want to cut that percentage and invest in that percentage, so we're going to cut 10% off. That equals about 300 people. What are the teams that doesn't make a lot of money? Okay, slash the whole team.
Yeah.
This is literally how it goes. I've seen 3 layoffs in my lifetime at Philips, and you see like teams getting slashed. So if your approach is seems like the smarter one, but that's totally not how sadly it works. You look at it as money. Okay, we're going to cut 20 million from this team, 30 million from that team, 10 million from that team, with no deep thinking about how would you you'll lose a lot of great talent.
Yeah.
No thinking around that.
Yeah, it's a sadness of living in a capitalistic world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the future though still, because I think I'm seeing more of future into like creatives, and of course there's this utopian world wherein people will not be working because AI will take a lot of the jobs, so that you will have a universal income. and then you can work on things that you want to work on because you want to work on, not because you have to. So I'm excited about that. I mean, if that happens, but I'm always like an optimist in that scenario. But it's a wake up call though.
Yeah.
It's a wake up call for everybody out there. You cannot just sleep on this. It's even like people compare this to electricity.
It is pivotal.
Yeah. So cool. Well, let's end this call with one final question. What advice would you give? I know you're working on a great startup. You have an amazing path forward. What advice would you give to all the young ones who are just starting off in their career, or want to enter into AI, or want to enter into healthcare, or just in general, like one thing that you want to speak to the listeners?
I think there's a lot I could advise on. I think maybe starting kind of like with the startup world for anyone who's interested in joining. Just making sure that you think of it as a marathon and not a sprint. There's going to be a lot of the highs are high and the low are awfully low. So just trying to, have these moments of joy that you can enjoy. It's funny. It could be a completely different advice, but that's how I think of it, is trying to find joyful moments so you can keep going forward. For someone entering their career, I think it can be really overwhelming and really hard to know where do you start. My biggest always advice to young individuals, especially getting into even university, please do not enter based on, I heard this is like a field that gets a lot of money. Of course, yeah, AI right now is blooming, but I can assure you, if you do not have the passion from the inside in anything, you will not move forward. That was exactly what happened to me with industrial engineering, because you have to have that spark inside to keep in the harder days, to keep going forward. And so I could have given any other maybe more practical advice, but my true advice is to find something that you're so passionate about or passionate enough about that you can get out of bed and make a business out of it or make a career out of it. For AI, I would say to just do it, to just experiment. Go, the cheapest subscription you will find on the planet right now. Go to po.com. If you want access to Flux, which can generate images, hell, they have, it feels like illegal secret to say, but they even have the video generating, I forgot the company's name, Runway. Yeah. They have Claude, they have ChatGPT. Go there. Really? They have everything. $20, take 80. Right now you have access to these, they're training on you, but they have access to these amazing LLMs, and just practice it.
What is it? Flux?
Flux is for image generation. A lot of startups are using it right now to wrapper around it. Yeah. Runway is there. Runway subscription is $100 if you go to Runway itself. What? Flux is I don't know, $20, $30. Yeah. So in po.com, you're getting, I don't know, how are they making money? Po? Po. Oh, Po. POE.com.
Gotcha.
Go out and put that $20 and forget about it. It gives you access to almost every LLM. Llama is there, and just start making your own custom LLM to help you. That's what I do with Nour, is to help me with my own tasks and experiment with it. That makes you more in lead than someone who hasn't even touched it. Yeah. That would be my advice.
That's a beautiful advice. In all I'm hearing that just be curious and just start experimenting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then listen to your gut and pursue your passion, basically.
Listen to your gut, because your girl here did not listen to it. So this is coming from experience.
Man, this has been awesome, Heba. Thanks a lot for joining the show. I'm looking forward to your startup, Noor. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.